Hello, and welcome to Fact Schmacks. It's the podcast good enough to get you a C.
Minus.
My name is Matt, and I've got a story to tell you.
And my name is Kev. I have a story to interrupt. That's what I do. I interrupt things.
That is what you do. All right.
Yeah, it's kind of my shtick, you know.
Yeah.
I do those things. You know what else is my shtick?
Yes.
A little game of Fact Schmacks.
Oh.
You ever heard of it?
Yes. It's a great
familiar?
game.
Are you familiar with the rules?
I am familiar with the rules as you have changed them recently.
So we have either two facts and a schmacked or two schmacks and a fact. It's up to Matt to figure out which one's which. For all the glory.
For all of the glory.
Fact or schmack?
Oh,
Matt?
Jesus Christ.
Hold on. I had a little intro.
Oh, yes.
So we just had the it's November. There was just the midterm elections. I'm sure everybody's sick of hearing about them, but it made me think because I don't do a lot of thinking.
No.
So I took my cue from the news and I was like, how about some election facts?
Okay. All right.
Some election facts.
Election factoroonies.
Fact or schmack, Matt?
For crying out loud.
The worst campaign slogan in history belongs to Al Smith, a 1928 presidential candidate who was against prohibition. To show his support for the creation, distribution, and sale of alcohol, he advertised, "Vote for Al Smith, and he'll make your wet dreams come true."
I don't think you're clever enough to come up with that, so I think it's true.
Fact or schmack, Matt?
Yes.
Contrary to popular belief, the 1933 German election that brought Hitler to power was widely regarded as one of the most fraud-free elections of the time, according to League of Nations observers.
Well, it wasn't the whole thing that he only won like a third of the seats.
Fact or schmack, Matt?
Yes.
During the 1872 election, presidential incumbent Ulysses S. Grant ran against a corpse. His opponent, Horace Greeley, died before the election was finalized. Grant won the election. TikTok, friend.
I was going to say, how bad would it be to lose to a corpse? But that's happened at least once in that I can remember, where someone running in the States lost to a dead guy. Oh, that's interesting. These are all really good ones.
Right?
These are very... So, make your wet dreams come true.
I raised my eyebrows to
Yeah,
you.
now it's starting to seem a little more suspicious next to these other things. And then second, we had German free and fair elections. Oh, boy.
Wow. We got a real stumper here, huh?
We do. I'm really stumped
But you
here.
have to vote for one of them.
I sure do.
What do you elect to do?
Oh, boy. I'm going to put my caucus behind the idea that it was the first one that is not true.
Ha ha! I win!
No!
By landslide. Yeah. That is a fact, man.
Wow.
Somebody had that campaign slogan.
That's a terrible slogan. So what was untrue there?
The Germany thing. I mean,
okay.
I don't know. Maybe it was free and fair. I just made it up.
Oh, all right. Fuck, I hate when you do that.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it
When
could
there's
be a
no
fact,
kernel of
but I
truth
just
there at
made
all.
that up.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
No idea.
Very,
I was like, I don't know. I assume it was fraudulent, but maybe it wasn't. But I'm just going to pretend the League of Nations said it was fine. Now, if you happen to fact check that and it turns out to be true, I'm still going to say I won. Just because I'm obstinate like that.
yeah.
But, you know, are you looking it up right now?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
No.
All right.
Well,
All right.
there's an old Spanish proverb that says silent water is dangerous water. Well, That might have been the case. That might have been the case back in December 4th of 1872. On that day, sailors aboard the De Gratia, a Canadian...
Sorry, could I point out just one thing?
Yeah.
December 4th, 1872.
Uh-huh.
I'd like to point out that Ulysses S. Grant was a freshly elected president. He'd been in office less than a month. Funny how that ties in, isn't it, huh?
Wow. It's the segue that nobody asked for. I mean, I certainly didn't.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I love you and everything you do.
Yeah.
So sailors above the De Gratia, a Canadian shipping vessel, spotted another boat. And it looked like rough but seaworthy shape. Seemingly listing aimlessly off the coast of the Azores, which is a mid-Atlantic island about 1,400 kilometers from Libsyn.
Isn't it pronounced Azores?
Azores? Probably. You say Azores, I say Azores. I'm the only one that does it.
Okay, fair enough.
So upon closer inspection, the crew of the De Gratia was able to confirm that it was the Mary Celeste, a ship which had left the same port they had. In fact, just a week or two before they had left. And it should have made it to Italy where it was heading by then. Now
what a coinky-dink.
How weird is that? Now they can see that the port and aft hatches are open. But there's no...
That's the front and back?
That's the front and back, that's right. For those non-boat people unlike us.
There's port, aft, starboard, and... Port, aft, starboard, and...
I have a boating license.
Oh, no, you don't.
I sure do.
Why do you have a boating license?
For Sea-Doos.
Oh, my God. I can only picture you on an inner tube.
Floating
around like a pale donut.
And stern, isn't it?
Oh, stern. Yeah.
Anyways.
That sounds right.
Yeah,
stern.
That's poop deck.
Hard of stern, matey.
Yeah.
Poop deck.
Poop deck.
Yeah.
Other boating words. So yeah, the front and back hatches are open, but there's no obvious activity that they can see on this boat. They try signaling it, no response. So finally they roll on up to it or sail on up to it and send a few men on board to find out what's going on. Now from the deck of the ship there, they can see that sails are partially up, but they're in rough shape. The main cargo hatch was down, but was disturbed, like something had happened to it. And
Kraken.
It could have been. There was also an abandoned makeshift sounding rod. Now, a sounding rod was a tool that sailors would use to try and figure out how much water a vessel had taken on. I don't know how it works, and I didn't look it up.
Magic.
Yes. Now, so then that's what they can discern just from the hull of the ship. No people around. They go inside, and what they find inside is, why, just as odd, if not more. Cargo is still there and still intact. There was food to last for weeks, but not a crew member from the Mary Celeste in sight. Along with the crew, there was a lifeboat that was missing, a navigation book, a sextant and a chronometer, and a large sail line had been attached to the back of the boat and had been either sheared off or cut. Either way, it wasn't attached to anything.
Isn't that the same thing? I guess sheared would be maybe if it got ripped off.
Yeah.
All right, I'll give you that one.
Yeah. So the only other really details that were amiss on the ship, the cargo hold of the 1,701 barrels. Now, I don't think they noticed this right away. This is just something they found out eventually. Of the 1,701 barrels of denatured alcohol that they were taking from New York to Italy, 9 of those barrels were empty. Coincidentally enough, of those 1,701 1 barrels. 1,692 of them were made of white oak, which is a really good non-porous wood for making barrels that you would carry a liquid in. And 9 of them were made of red oak, which is a porous wood that would be more for dry goods. And those barrels that were empty, they were all the red oak barrels. The white oak barrels were all full. The red oak barrels were empty.
Okay.
There was also about 3.5 feet of water in the bottom of the boat. Not catastrophic, something that they should have been able to deal with. But yeah, that was the state of the boat. Now, let's talk about this boat, the Mary Celeste. Where did it come from? It was built in 1860. It was originally named the Amazon. Now, changing the name of a ship is the sort of thing that's considered to be bad luck. But in a sort of catch-22, it's also the sort of thing that you might do if the ship has already encountered a significant amount of bad luck. Such was the case with the Amazon.
Okay. So just to catch up to where we're at here and to give you some context of what goes on in my brain.
Yeah.
I'm now picturing Jeff Bezos in a captain's hat.
Good.
Okay.
Because what happens next to the Amazon?
And that weird laugh he has?
Great.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So creepy.
Yes. So the first captain of the Amazon died of pneumonia before the ship could even finish its first mission. So hopefully you kept that picture in your head, and now he's dead of pneumonia. That sounds terrible when I put it that way, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think we're going to get dropped from Amazon streaming services.
Maybe. Listen, I'm just saying if he was alive at that time, he might have died of pneumonia like so many people did.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, maybe that's a little
I think it's more of a misadventure feat. Let's see what the next captain has in store.
Well,
I'll tell you which one's Bezos.
So the captain that took over for this original ship, well, he ran the ship into some fishing equipment on his way out in Maine, and then he ran into and sank another ship as he was approaching London. So in its first trip...
This guy needed an interlock on his steering wheel.
Yeah.
Too much rum for you, sir.
Could be. In 1867, the ship was ran aground during a storm in Cape Breton Island, and they abandoned it as a wreck. Don't even want to deal with it anymore. That wreckage is then purchased. It's renamed the Mary Celeste and restored. Then it was repoed by creditors. Then it was sold and sold again. Eventually, it winds up in the hands of this consortium of people, one of whom is Captain Benjamin Spooner Briggs. Pardon?
Spooner.
That's
a consortium.
That's consortium. That is a word you can legitimately pronounce a bunch of different ways.
Okay, I'll give it to you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, are you okay?
I am okay. So in 1872, winds up with Spooner Briggs, Benjamin Spooner Briggs. He is an experienced captain. He's got a good reputation.
Was his nickname Big Spooner or Little Spooner?
Great question. I do not have an answer for you.
All right, let's call him Little Spooner.
Let's call him Little Spooner. I bet.
All right.
Because who doesn't want to be the Little Spooner every once in a while?
Who doesn't, man?
Yeah.
It's nice to just be held.
It is nice to be held. I'll grant you that. So on October 20th, the Mary Celeste arrives in New York to pick up 1,701 barrels of pure alcohol headed to Genoa, Italy.
Is this the story of the 99 bottles of beer on the wall?
No.
That would be like a really long countdown.
That would be.
1,701 bottles of rum on the wall. 1,701 bottles.
It's just alcohol, not rum.
Oh, it's okay. It's not rum.
Yeah.
I just sometimes when I think of pirates, I think of rum.
No, think like Whiskey
Captain
Flood.
Morgan.
Like pure alcohol, like
just pure grain alcohol.
Yeah.
Go blind.
Yeah.
Do not drink.
Do not drink. Yeah, like
Don't drink it.
lots
Hand
of fumes.
sanitizer only.
Yeah. This is pure, basically jet fuel.
Okay.
So it is worth noting that as the Mary Celeste is in New York picking up its cargo, the captain of the De Grazia, David Morehouse, was in town. They were, both going to be leaving from the same port. It's popularly said that the night before the Mary Celeste left, this captain, Spooner, Briggs, and Morehouse had dinner together. That's probably not true. That's entirely based on Morehouse's widow remembering that like 50 years after the fact. Or I guess who knows that if it could be true, but they probably did know each other, but it's unclear whether they actually did have dinner together the night before. But either way, on November 5th, the ship left with Briggs, his wife, his daughter, and his hand-picked 7-man crew. Now, of course, we know how this ends. It ends with that same De Grazia, the same, that ship, and David Morehouse finding the Mary Celeste completely abandoned.
So there's only 9-10 people on this ship. 7 crew, his wife,
10 people.
And his wife and who else?
His daughter.
His daughter, okay.
Yeah. So when they find it, they found that the ship's log was still there and it was intact, and it had entries right up until 8 a.m. on November 25th. The log's the sort of thing, I guess, back in the day, maybe even now, you'd be making updates at least every hour, so they can pretty conclusively say that whatever happened to this ship happened between 8 and 9 a.m. on November 25th. The log also noted that there had been some small noises and explosions coming from the cargo hold. But that's, I guess, back in the day, if you were carrying stuff like alcohol or oil, you would experience little leaks and things like that happening. So I don't think it was something that was too out of the ordinary necessarily. Okay. Although it might be an important detail for later or when we discuss what might have happened. Now, at the end of the day, the crew of the De Grazia brought the Mary Celeste to Gibraltar, which is, I guess, where you would bring a salvage ship back in the day. Under maritime salvage laws, they were entitled to a reward for having recovered it. But there's a process involved, so they went to port and started that process. The insurance company did their own investigation, basically to make sure that, this wasn't a case of we're just going to get rid of piracy. Essentially, yeah, we're going to get rid of the crew and claim the reward. They weren't able to prove anything, so they paid out the money. And the Mary Celeste actually went back to work. It continued to operate for this consortium for another few years before it was ultimately ran aground deliberately in an act of insurance fraud.
Wow.
Yeah. Now this doesn't.
So this thing is like the budget car that gets sold off at the used car lot, and every bum gets it.
But yes, and then it is involved in this one prominent instance where it's found abandoned on the high seas. And for whatever reason, I'm sure it's not the only ship that's ever been found abandoned on the high seas, but it just gets a reputation. Kind of gets into the popular consciousness. A lot of myths start to surround the ship, becomes an enduring sort of ghost story. Various newspapers and books have added details around the ship that just aren't true. Things like the ship being in immaculate shape when it was found, with food still out on the table, still warm, with the ship's log accurate up to an hour before it was found. Arthur Conan Doyle, famous for writing
2,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Nope.
Sherlock Holmes.
Yes.
Yep.
Did he write 2,000 Leagues? I don't know that he didn't.
I don't think so. That was Jacques Cousteau. No, that was the character. I don't know anymore. That might have been Moby Dick. Let's just carry on. It's just a big hodgepodge in my brain.
Oh, my goodness. Either way, Arthur Conan Doyle did, in fact, write Sherlock Holmes. He wrote an account from a fictitious survivor named, now I get to butcher some names, J. Habakkuk Jeffson. Banger name.
Absolute banger name.
Yeah, this book had a very, very, very loose relationship with the facts surrounding it, but really it's
So it was more of a schmactual book.
a schmactual recounting of what had happened to this ship. Either way, the Mary Celeste became synonymous with the idea of a ghost ship. You know, now whenever people tell the story of the Mary Celeste, it's like that scene in Aliens when they're going through the colony and there's, everyone's half-eaten breakfast is still sitting there.
Yeah.
And it's very clear that whatever had happened had, happened probably pretty fast, but it seemed like it was pretty orderly, right? Like they weren't in the middle of making meals. Everything was put away, but at the same time, it seems like whatever happened pretty quick, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So let's get right down to it. What happened?
Let's get down.
Nobody knows what happened. There's just a bunch of possibilities.
The crew was never found.
Crew was never found. Lifeboat was never found. Let's get the obvious things out of the way. The things that it definitely wasn't. Probably wasn't aliens or ghosts. Or at least...
It was a rapture.
Or a very selective rapture. Like there's like a... The Jehovah's Witnesses were on the right track, but they just had way too many people. It was actually only these 10.
Yeah, for sure.
Probably not a giant squid or a whale attack because, it's pretty obvious that these people got into the lifeboat, at least some of them. And if you were getting attacked by a giant squid, why would you get into a smaller boat?
Into a lifeboat, yeah.
That doesn't make sense, right? If it were pirates, well, typically pirates would take the loot, right?
Sure. Especially all that jet fuel.
Absolutely. They would have taken that rocket fuel. They would have drank it.
Sure.
If it was a mutiny, you'd expect some of the crew...
Mutineers.
Yeah, right? You'd expect some of the crew to still be there. So you can kind of rule all that stuff out. Rogue wave is something that people maybe suggest. It would account for maybe
But that one, you'd think there'd be one or two people not on deck.
Not on deck who wouldn't have been swept off.
Sure.
Why do they get in let's say two people are left, and that explains the, the water sounding instrument on deck and maybe why the boat's gone. But then, why would you get off the boat at that point?
Sure. It's still floating.
Still floating, right?
Still have a lifeboat.
Yeah. It doesn't.
It's weird.
It doesn't make sense. And also, if there was a rogue wave that came in and, really rocked shit up, you'd expect that the cargo hold would have been in way worse shape. But the cargo hold seemed largely fine, other than these 9 empty barrels.
Yeah, something's afoot there.
Something's afoot there, right? Well, again, they're made from that porous red oak. They're scattered amongst, 1,701 barrels, just 1,692 other barrels that probably look pretty goddamn similar to them. Maybe they're all painted. Who knows? Sure. I don't know. I haven't looked at these barrels myself. That's what I'm saying. I'm unaware. But it is possible that they were slowly leaking alcohol over time. That alcohol is putting off fumes and gas, and eventually... Maybe someone walks down there with a cigar. Maybe someone walks down there with a lantern, but it sparks like a flash explosion. There was actually a test done using butane instead of alcohol to see kind of what that would look like. And what they found is that in this sort of situation, you get a buildup of gas, you get this flash explosion. The explosion is really quickly followed by this pressure wave full of cool air. And so what they found is that nothing was singed or burned, which would kind of explain you would think if there was an explosion in the cargo hold, there would be evidence of it, but not necessarily if it was just the fumes burning off really quickly. Well, what if there was an explosion big enough to scare the shit out of them and essentially they abandon ship or they get on the lifeboat, tie it to...
Thinking the next one's going to be the one that takes the ship out.
Right.
This load is unstable. Now, hear me out. Okay. You got this ship that, might blow up and you're on a lifeboat and you're on this rope. I'm assuming this rope goes out a few hundred feet.
Yeah, it was one of the sail lines on a reasonably big boat.
Okay, so so I'm thinking to myself, all right, I'm sitting here and I'm not sure about. Well, I mean, I guess 1,700 barrels is a lot of fuel. But I'm thinking, I go out on this lifeboat. I'm like, I don't know about this boat. I'm going to get on this lifeboat, but I might not cut the tether. I might just kind of go, oh, let's just hang out here for a bit and see what happens. Maybe we go back. We got to eat. We got to drink. Maybe someone comes along.
Yeah.
So I don't think I cut myself loose there right away. But if I think maybe the explosion could be big enough that it would engulf my tiny boat, then
you can maybe
I would.
Yeah, and you can get behind the idea that, okay, we're not sure what's going on. We're going to tie a tether to the big boat. We're going to get on the lifeboat, and we're going to wait this out, see what happens, you know?
Yeah.
So that's one theory as to what happened to them. Other people say maybe a natural disaster forced them to do something similar. Either way, again, it seems very clear that this crew voluntarily got into the lifeboat and somehow were left behind.
They're clearly on a common shipping lane, right? Like they're getting followed by this other boat. I'm sure other boats maybe passed by, didn't think to maybe even look. Sounds like they're on a pretty major thoroughfare. You'd think somebody would know about a weather event.
You'd think.
Oh.
You'd think. Now, National Geographic, those folks at the old National Geographic Society.
The old Nat Geo.
Of explorers. They did some forensic auditing of some of the logbooks, and they came to the conclusion that the boat was actually lost, that they were way off course from where they thought they were. So they might not have been in as populated a shipping lane as they thought. Now, if that's true, how did the Di Grazia wind up right there, though? Right off course with them. Isn't that kind of weird? So some people think... That is
very weird.
Some people do think that this was an instance of piracy, but it wasn't just pirates. It was...
Canadian pirates.
It was Canadian pirates. Now, worth noting that, we talked about the insurance company. They did their own investigation. They couldn't find anything, so they had to pay out the money. They only paid out about a sixth of the money. Now, some people mean that to, imply that they thought something was definitely up there. They just couldn't prove it. You could also make the argument that maybe they were just a shitty insurer. I don't know. I don't know enough about the insurance argument or industry to make that argument specifically, but that is, the captain, Morehouse, was never able to quite shake the feeling that maybe he'd done something a little suspicious there.
So he kind of had a bit of a air of mystique about him.
And people thought mystique, suspicion, a
little shady.
Yeah, that's right.
Shady. All right.
My personal theory, though, goes something like this. Those 9 barrels, they're starting to leak alcohol more than usual. They're used to getting these little flashes if maybe a barrel expands a bit or contracts, a little gas leaks out, or, they're used to that sort of thing, but this is a continuous stream, and it just keeps building up and building up and building up. Eventually, maybe they got a lantern down there. It comes in contact with the spark. Maybe someone's walking down there with a lantern. Who knows how it happens, but eventually there's an explosion that is big enough to scare the bejesus out of them. It blows the main cargo hatch up a little bit and disturbs it so it doesn't fall back down quite right. Explains why.
But what about the guy holding the light in the explosion? You would think that would take him out?
So maybe he gets blown back and singed, but it sounds like in this type of thing it would have been...
But then you're dumping a kerosene lantern in a wooden ship with...
Yeah, so maybe that's not how it happened, but either way, somehow...
I say your theory is bullshit.
So they know that something's exploded down there. They don't want to send anybody back down there in case something's wrong. They think that maybe the ship's taking on water. They use their makeshift device. They get an erroneous reading back, and they decide to abandoned ship. They think they're taking on water. They think there's been a big explosion in the cargo hold. For all they know, there's a hole in the side of the ship. They get back on that boat there. Maybe the rope just snaps. Or maybe at some point they decide that if the boat does go down, it's going to pull them down via this rope. Or if it explodes, they're going to be too close. Yeah. So eventually they make the decision to cut the rope, maybe because they thought they were a lot closer to land than they turned out being because they were wildly off course. Or they thought they were in a more populated shipping lane than they were, and someone would come along quickly and find them. It could be. So
did the guy say where he found the boat?
Yeah, it was off the off the coast of the Azores.
Right, the Azores.
The Azores.
So they must have been close enough to land that they could have. I mean, I guess if you don't know which direction land is.
Now, judging by the logbook for where they said they were, that boat had drifted about 700 kilometers by the time anyone found it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
and they had taken the sextant and a couple other things, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, they probably got on that boat and tried to make a run for somewhere.
Man, I honestly hope that's the case, because it's so horrifying to think of the idea that they're tethered to the back, thinking they're just going to wait this out, and then the line snaps and they watch the boat sail off.
Or some other boat comes along and it's like, you bunch of pussies, cuts them loose and seals their boat and cashes it in for the insurance.
Yeah, maybe.
It's just it's a weird thing because like nobody survived, or maybe there's like a little colony of people on some desert island that
there was in the area, there was a island where someone found the wreckage, not wreckage, but like the remains of some sort of boat, and it had an American flag with it. Oh, maybe that's the Mary Celeste people, but I mean, that could have been from any ship that went down in the area.
You know what? I'm going to put in a request right now.
Okay.
I want a good shipwreck story. I want like the story of like, Tom Hanks and Wilson, like the real story.
Okay. I don't.
Like something like that, some kind of like Swiss Family Robinson.
So not the Indianapolis. That's very different.
No, that's I mean, that's a good story too. But yeah, like something where, some people survive on an island or something. I think that would be fun.
A tale of survival and maybe also throw a little bit of survival in there. Yeah.
Maybe it's like a story where like they just started out on a 3-hour tour.
Oh, that made me think of the worst story that I've ever heard of in that sense. Did you ever hear the story about the people who got left on a snorkeling tour?
No.
Oh.
What?
Didn't end well. Sort of tour where they take you out in the middle of the ocean and let you snorkel around for a little bit, and everybody gets back on the boat and they take off. They didn't get back on the boat.
They didn't have a buddy system?
Oh, if they did, it failed. I think they were each other's buddy.
Fuck. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, that's terrible.
They made a movie out of it. I could not possibly bring myself to watch that. You couldn't pay me to watch something like that.
I mean, I was just thinking of Gilligan's Island, but I'm glad that you went to a dark place because that's very on brand for our show.
Yeah, because real life.
So yeah, real life
not
is
so hot.
Pretty, yeah, it's never ends so well for folks.
Not usually.
That's a pretty fascinating story you got there. Is that all you got for me?
Yeah,
you got a little,
that's
trick up your sleeve here.
No, that's about it. I mean, unless you've got any theories about what happened to this bad boy there.
I mean, I kind of like the theory of that. Like I said, they kind of said, well, I don't feel safe here anymore. I like your theory that there was an explosion, took on some water.
Yeah. Makes sense that they opened the fore and aft vents or hatches to try and vent it out a bit, if that's what they thought was going on. But
and then I kind of wonder if, like I said, if they went out on the boat to just kind of be at a safe berth, or if they were really concerned about an explosion, thinking like, okay, if that was one barrel that blew up and that scared the bejesus out of us, what happens if all of these go off?
Yeah.
I mean, that reminds me of a tale that we are going to tell on this story about boats that explode.
That's the worst kind of boat to be on.
Yeah. Eventually, we're going to do an episode on the Halifax harbor explosion.
I've
a fascinating story.
It sure has. I've started that one a few times.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's been on my radar for sure.
That would be a good one. But yeah, I mean, that when something like that with enough fuel goes, I mean, so for context, for anybody not familiar with the Halifax harbor explosion of 1917, 18, it was during World War I. Yeah, basically the gist of it is you had a ship full of ammunition bound for Europe, and there was a collision, a fire, and then what resulted was the largest explosion in the world to date, like man-made, I guess, is technically it was man-made explosives. It was the largest explosion outside of a nuclear explosion in the world ever. It leveled Halifax. It took years for it to recover. Pretty wild, pretty crazy. So maybe these people kind of thought, okay, we got this big bang from a barrel or two, 1,700 barrels. Let's GTFO. And I think they dipped out thinking they were closer to somewhere than they were. And
Yeah.
What was the date it was found on again?
December 5th, 1872.
So it had been adrift for 10 or 11
December
days.
4th, 1872. Yeah.
So about 10 days adrift. How far could a boat drift in a day?
Well,
do you think?
Probably somewhere around 700 kilometers divided by 10 or 11.
Do you think so? That would be about 70 kilometers a day.
It would depend on its sails were partially prevailing wind, current, whatever the rudder was deciding to do at the time.
I don't know what the math is for vehicles of that era or boats of that era.
Well, as a guy with a boating license, let me
you're basically the expert on this.
Let me just interject here and say that there's just no way to know. There's just no way you could possibly tell. You just couldn't do it. I believe it.
You couldn't do it, or you couldn't do it.
Yeah, you couldn't do it.
I'm sure somebody could do it.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm absolutely sure somebody could do it.
I'm sure somebody could use modern technology and figure that one out.
And maybe they even did, and maybe I overlooked that while I was doing my plentiful research.
Come on, no.
Yeah.
You wouldn't do that.
Oh, I don't know.
It's been known to happen.
It's been known to happen. It's a sizable... I got to tell you, the note to conversation ratio of this one was a little disappointing. I had lots of notes, but...
yeah, that happens.
Sometimes it happens. Sometimes it's just all dry fact.
Yeah, I mean, you've come into episodes and you're like, don't have a lot of notes here.
Love when you talk dirty.
And then it's like an hour, and then the episode's like an hour and a half because it's just some crazy topic. What are you laughing about? Why are you losing your shit there?
Sometimes they make me laugh.
What did you say?
I said I love it when you talk dirty to me. When you were doing your impression of me to me. There's layers to that. And probably some things I should talk to a professional about there too.
Yeah, definitely not. I don't want to talk about that with you. Hey, can I tell you what I was going to do for your Halloween party?
That you didn't show up to?
Listen, I was severely injured. Mm-hmm. I'm still in a lot of pain from that.
Mm-hmm. Anyways.
What
were you going to do?
I was going to be you. I was like, I found out that New Bold dad shoes are fucking expensive now. Like way too expensive for a joke. New Balance.
Yeah,
New Balance.
Yeah, those are the dad shoes that I.
They are ridiculously expensive. Listen, I looked at them. They're like $170 for a pair of those bad boys now.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I was like, that's as funny as I think that would be.
No,
I'm not that committed.
You get them cheaper than that. You go to a factory shoe. You go to a Payless, maybe. I don't know.
I would just maybe get some white sneakers and paint a big blue N on them. NB or whatever it is. I'd make it work anyhow. But then there was a couple things that deterred me. One was that I didn't want to have a mustache because it's not sightly on me.
It wouldn't look as good on you.
Two, I didn't want to hear your jokes about how you're like, you're me, but when I let myself go, you're like fat Elvis, Matt.
What really bothers me is that your impression of me is a lot funnier than I am.
Dude, so I was gonna get some baby powder on my face and then tape my eyes back a bit so they're like
that might have gone over slightly poorly.
But I was like, I even messaged your wife and I was like, I need pictures of Matt's tattoos and their exact locations. Dude, I was going to just go and stay in character all night.
Well, missed opportunity.
You're lucky that one, I'm too cheap to spend $170 on shoes. Also, when I was like, okay, I'm not coming, and then I was going to go, I was just going to cop out like some cheap costume. But my original plan was to go as you. I was going to wear one of our Fact Schmack shirts, carry around a cardboard cutout of a PRS guitar.
You really should have.
It was going to be so epic.
You really should have.
Yeah. And then I stepped on a cat and twisted my knee.
Well,
that cat's alive, by the way.
Oh, I didn't care.
Definitely used up one of his 9 lives.
I got
full on stepped on that fat little bastard.
I wonder if it was the same cat when I was crashing at your place. And I watched it. You know, you usually see cats do such graceful things, or at least you think you do. I watched it just try to get onto a table, and the table fell down. Fucking lamp fell down.
Was it fat and orange?
I can't remember. I thought it might have
been. Or was
it
black and white?
It might have been the black and white one. I don't know.
Yeah, they're both pretty dumb.
I thought it might have been. I can't remember.
Well,
it was funny.
It's alive, and that costume is now ruined. It would have been epic. It could still happen, but you know. Anyhow, how about a closing fact for you?
Can't wait. Literally can't wait.
Give it to me. You got somewhere to be?
Give it to me right now.
All right. You want me to give it to you dirty? I'll give it to you dirty.
Oh, that went way too far.
Here's a little fact about Kennedy. All right. Okay. Let me. Little fact about Kennedy. Stop laughing so much. Kennedy survived a previous assassination attempt. All right, I can't do it as you. It's too hard. So, November 22nd, 1963, Kennedy is assassinated. But what you don't know, what people don't know, is that he had actually survived a previous assassination attempt. 2 months before his inauguration, he was targeted by Richard Pavlik, a 73-year-old man who hated Catholics and had intended to crash his dynamite-laden car into Kennedy while he was vacationing in Palm Beach. Pavlik decided against using his car at the last minute when he saw Kennedy was with wife and child. He was caught by Secret Service 3 days later. I didn't know that.
Wow. What a cartoon
You're
villain.
still recovering, eh? Yeah, totally. Yeah. So. Yeah.
Yes, I am still recovering. Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, goodbye.
My.
Thank you for listening to Fact Smacks.
We hope you enjoyed our show. If you want to hear more, be sure to check us out on Patreon at patreon.com/factschmacks.
Or you can check us out on Facebook or on YouTube or on twitter.com @FactSchmackedPod.
We also have a website, factschmacks.xyz, because we know you haven't had enough yet.
Sure.